This meeting is being recorded.
So yesterday we have seen the component, and in the component event, the first one which we have seen yesterday, we discussed the two scenarios. First scenario is as soon as I click on it, save on the child component. The save is going to call the event, lightning event, and then lightning event is going to pass the data to parent component. So this is the first one which we have seen yesterday. And coming to the second one, today we will see the second scenario. As soon as I click on it, save, it should call the server-side controller. It should call the server-side controller. And let's assume that this is the method one. Okay. So this is the method one it should call. And then once it is done, so what it does in the method one, I'll insert the account and let's return the ID. Okay, I'll return the ID. So where I have to return the ID, I have to return the ID to back to event. The first step is save will be calling the method. And as soon as it call the method, it will insert the new record. Whatever the new record is there that we have entered here, it will pass the details here. Okay, that means it will pass the account details. There is a parameter here for this method one. The parameter is ACC for the method one. So as soon as you click on save, it call the server-side controller. And then once insert the account, then it will return the ID back to the event. It will return the ID back to event. Now parent component, immediately when the handler executes. So what it does when the handler executes, it calls the event will be passing the ID. So this is the register event. I'm firing the event. As soon as I fire the event, it will, once I have the data from server side, it will return back to ID. At the same time, whoever is handling the event, it will pass the ID to parent component. Okay. Once I got the ID, what it does, it has to call the another method. Because right now, the event is holding the ID. So there are two methods. Two methods in the server side. One is child component is calling the same class and the method M1. Parent class is calling the same class and the method is M2. Okay, in case I do not want the ID. If I do not want the ID, then I do not need this. In case I do not want the ID, I wanted to pass the entire list. So when I'm displaying the details, instead of whatever the user has entered, I wanted to show all the records that are present in the account. In that case, I do not need this ID. Okay. If I do not need this ID means I am not expecting any ID from the child component. Whoever is registering it, I'm not expecting the ID. So in that case, I do not need this also. And I do not need event also. Simple. Is it clear or shall I draw it again?
No need, no need.
It's clear, right? So basically, if I wanted to display all the records from the account, then I do not need the event, because I can directly call the Apex controller and I can get all the accounts, all the account records without any parameter passing it. Okay, right now let's use the event. Okay, let's use the event and see how to handle from the Apex side. As soon as I get the response, how to call the event and how to pass the details to parent component. Let's go ahead and implement. So the first thing which I'll be doing is creating the server-side controller. CL underscore 2104. Create retrieve account. So in create retrieve account, I need two methods. One is public static. I'm expecting the first one is returning the ID, which is a string. So insert account. What I'm expecting the parameter here, ACC. So this is one. Let's declare the string result. Assume that this is holding the ID. So return will be the return result. And I need another method. So before that, let's complete the first method. So I have a return string is there. So I'm getting the parameter account. So let's use the try and the catch. Catch in case if I have any issue, exception. If I have any issue, I'll simply return the result equal to failed. Okay. In case everything goes fine, what I'll do is simply I'll insert ACC and then I'll return the result equal to ACC dot ID. Okay, this is the logic for the child component. So no issues. In order to call the child component, I have to add the annotation aura enabled. This is the method one. Let's use the method two, public static list of account. Let's assume that I'm getting all the account. Okay, so what I wanted to return basically all the records. Select ID, comma, name, comma, phone, comma, rating, comma, industry, from account. Okay, let's assume that I'm returning everything. In case I want based on the ID, then here the parameter will be int a, integer a, or I can be write ID a, and here it will be where ID equal to a. Okay, but let's take all the records right now. And in order to call this second method from the parent component, I have to write the annotation aura enabled. Okay, so my controller is ready. Now I'll use the same component which I created yesterday. So yesterday I created the component which is a P create account. Let's close this all. Store.app. Okay, I had created yesterday the create account component. Let me open that. Okay, and I have a child component inside this. Let me open that. And then I had the event. Open this. Okay, these are the three components that I have created yesterday. So let me use the one which I created yesterday, because only the difference that I see is my controller. So whatever I had created right now, the controller, this is the controller that I have created. So let's use this controller from the child component. In order to use the controller from the child component, I'll use controller equal to my controller name, and rest all everything is same. The reason is I'm not changing the front end part. I'm not changing the front end part. Only the part that I'm changing is back end. Whatever the back end is there, that I'm changing, but the user front view, I'm not changing it at all. So that's the reason I'll use, I need an attribute, I need a register event, card, save, clear, account name, phone number, everything is new. Everything is needed. But backend logic is going to change. Okay. Now let's go to the function. Yesterday we have written the handle save. Okay, whenever we click on a save button, what we are doing, I'm retrieving the data that user has entered through the new account attribute and calling the event and passing the parameter to event and firing the event. But here it is a little bit different. So let me comment out this fire event here, because right now I do not need. This logic is for level 1. Level 1 logic. So this is for level 1 logic. Let me write the logic in order to call the server-side controller. In order to call the server-side controller, what are the steps that we have seen 2-3 days back? So let me use that component.get. What is the method that I needed here? I need insert account. So c dot insert account. So this is my method name. Is it expecting any parameters? Yes, I have ACC is the parameters. So let me use action dot set params. Let's build the JSON to pass the attribute parameters. What is the data that I'm going to pass? The single record. Single record I'm going to pass. Now once the set param is done, then I have to use action dot invoke the callback. Set callback. What is the standard keyword I have? Is comma function. And in the function variable name is response. Okay. So this is the to call to invoke the callback. Then I have a fourth step which is called as a $a.enqueue action and pass the parameter action. This is I'm calling the server-side controller passing the single record. And in the response, once the callback is done, so what I have to do, let's verify what is my state. In order to get the state, response dot get state. Okay. So once I have the state, let's cross verify. If the state equal to successful, if my response is executed successfully. Okay, so what I wanted to get result, res equal to response dot get return value. Okay, I'm getting the response here. Okay, response is if it is successful, then it will return the ID. Okay, if it is failed, it will return the failed. But at the end, my state is successful. There is no error in the apex side. Okay, I'll get the state equal to success, but the response value is either ID or failed. Either ID or failed. Right? When it is a failed, I do not want to call the event, lightning event. I do not want to call the lightning event when it is failed. When my response of result equal to failed, I do not want to call the event. So what we can write is res not equal to failed. That means if I have the value ID. In case if I have the value ID, I wanted to call the event. I wanted to call the event. Okay, but here I have the value in the res is ID. Okay, right now my event holds only one attribute, which is the account. So let me go ahead and create another attribute which is called as a AID. Aura colon attribute name equal to account ID type equal to string. Okay, so res will be having the only value of ID. Okay, so I wanted to pass a dot ID equal to res. So let me comment this out for now. So once in case if I wanted to pass the ID, we can pass it. Okay, otherwise there are different ways I can use the lightning event. Only with the ID, if I want to play all around the logic, we can pass the ID. Or if I wanted to pass entire account to the lightning event, I can pass the entire lightning account. So I can pass all the account details to the lightning event, or ID I can pass it. Okay, in case if my response is failed, what do I wanted to show? Alert account creation failed. Okay, so my child is ready. Only extra thing what I am doing compared to level 1, calling the server-side controller. If my response is valid, that means if I have the ID into this, then I'm calling the event. Okay, now this is the child component. Let me go to the parent component. Parent component also, I need all of these details. Everything is same on the HTML because front end, I'm not changing anything. Let's go back to the controller. So what we did yesterday to show the details, I was calling the account, the event, and getting the account values, and then retaining the existing data, adding the new one. Okay. Now let's comment this one. Right now, I do not need this. This is for level 1. Now, what I wanted to do for the level 2, I wanted to call the controller. And my controller is get account. Okay. So in order to call the controller, same steps, where action equal to component dot get, and my component method name is get account. Is it expecting any parameters? Right now it is not expecting. I'm not passing any ID here. Okay, let's get everything. Now I have a action dot set callback. And the standard keywords are this, comma, function, response. Okay, this is my set callback, and I have it. The last step is $a dot enqueue action. Let's pass action. Okay, so what I wanted to do in the response, once I got the response, let's verify the state, where state equal to response dot get state. So if my state equal to successful, if these are the standard keywords, even for the real time also we write this. Any Lightning component, if I wanted to call the Apex controller, these are the standard that we use in the real time also. If it is successful, I wanted to get the complete account details, where result equal to response dot get return value. Okay. Now I'll set back to the accounts. I have an attribute. I'll be setting back to the my attribute. 11. This comma function response. Where stat equal to, okay. So my closing should be Control X here and this. Okay. So this is a parent controller. I'm just getting all the records from the server side. So let's execute. So I'll write the Wipro account name, and phone number is 9123211. Rating is 1. Let's save it in parent. Insert account. Get ACC. Unable to find the get ACC on the controller.
Controller is not declared in the parent.
Sorry,
Controller is not.
We are not calling the controller in the component, parent component.
So this is what we are calling, right? This is a parent component. Component dot get c dot.
We are not calling in the class, right? The component we are not calling.
Oh, okay, I have not written the controller name. Okay. So my controller name is. Okay. So let's use the controller. It's a controller name. Let's refresh. Delight Dell. Phone number is 343232. Let's say in parent. Okay. So do I have the Dell here? Yes. 3432 code. So it pulled all the records along with the Dell. Okay, so right now I have not written the clear. Let me show you something here clear. So usually whenever we wanted to clear, what do? So we usually take the new account and we put component dot set v dot account comma null. Okay. Now let's refresh. So LT account name, phone number 1234, some value here, hot. So save. In parent, I'm calling the alert, then it is showing the details LT. Okay, I'll click on clear. Now I'll enter another value here. Let's assume that Wipro LTD. Okay, phone number 1234. And I do not want the rating. Let's click on a save. Account creation is failed. See, it did not create the account. What might be the reason? It is coming here. Okay, state is error and this did not execute. As state is error, it came to this alert. Account creation is failed. The reason is whenever we set, what we are doing is, as soon as I click on the clear, I'm making this to the null. Okay. So there are two different concept is there in the Salesforce. Null, comma, blank. Okay. Right now I'm making it as a blank. So as soon as I make it as a blank, and when it happens, when I click on the clear, what it does is it will occupy the space at the back end. The cashier will have some space here. Okay. If I comment this line, it works perfectly fine with the same details. So let me copy this, refresh. First record will work anyway. So let me give first record essential, my account name, and 123. I will not give the rating. I click on a save in parent, and I have this. Now I'll enter the Wipro. I'll clear on this. Clear does not work. I'll remove the old one. I'll just enter the Wipro LTD 1234 save. It works. As I'm adding the blank, whether it is a blank or null, whatever it might be. Okay. So whenever I do component.set new account blank or null, what it does is it will occupy the memory, it will occupy the space in the cache. So Lightning will take it as a construct, whether we set it as a null or blank. So now I have written the null. Let me show you that account name. So let's assume that account name is tech, and phone number is 1212. Let's save this. Rating is not mandatory here. So either I can give or I can leave it as it is. Now tech N. I'll create another one, tech N. So now I'll click on a save. It will throw me an error. Tech M. It did create or not? Yes, it created. Did I refresh it? Account name, Walmart, 123, 123. Rating warm, save. Okay. Now Walmart USA. No, I have not clear. Walmart. See, as soon as I click on a clear, it throw me an error saying that read properties of null, reading a name null. This means as soon as I click on a clear, all the values in the, basically all the values in a sense, whatever the input is there, I'm making everything into the blank. I'm setting everything into the null. So null also will consider a space. Now what it is saying is, cannot read the property of null. So it is assuming that null is also one property. It doesn't think it is a null. So as soon as I type something, it will give me an error. Whether it can be phone or it can be rating or anywhere. So this will not work in Lightning component. Okay. Maybe you can, instead of button click, we are doing this, or right. But if you have a different logic on the same logic, same function, you wanted to make it null and then again set this. Like if you wanted to make it null, again set some value to the null within the same function. That time it might work. Here if I say result, okay, because I'm immediately making it null. Okay, there is a space occupied, but at the same time I'm redoing this again. So this might work, but if I have a function only to clear the values, that means I'm applying null and I'm leaving it. So in that case, it is a problem. So what we have to do in this case? So these kind of a scenarios, if we wanted to clear the data, the one way is using the renderer. Renderer means as soon as I click on a clear button, I want to render the page. Okay, I wanted to render the page. Instead of for doing the rendering, we write the logic in renderer. We write the logic in renderer. But by looking at the real time, okay, looking at the real time, renderer has some logic, some issues with the renderer. What are the issues? Basically, when it is loading the component for the first time or second time, or when I'm reloading it, or basically some attributes I'm checking. There is a lot of issues when we write the renderer. So that's the reason in real-time scenario, we do not use the renderer because it will impact the different scenarios. Okay, so that's the reason most of the developers avoid using the renderer. But instead of using the renderer, do we have any concept that I can write it here using the JavaScript? That is the question. Can I use it or not? Yes, there are few commands in JavaScript that I can use directly here and I can render the page. Okay. But before I try, I wanted to give you an assignment this one. Okay. So what is the assignment is I click on a clear, it should refresh the page, or it should refresh only this particular child component. And when I enter again the value, it should not say any this kind of a issue. Sorry to interrupt, or account creation is failed. So I do not want to see those errors. I want you to research and identify. It's a single straightforward line command. Okay, it's there in the JavaScript. How do you refresh your Lightning child component view? Okay, that is the assignment. Clear?
Okay.
Now let's go back to the next event is application event. Okay. So application event. So as we have seen, just to recap this event steps. What is an event? Event is any message generated by either system or browser is called an event, right? And there are two types of event in the system event: component event, application event. We have seen the component event in the two different scenarios. Okay, what we have done, the steps in the component event: creating the event, okay, and then calling the event. How we were calling the event? Component dot get event. Then I'm passing the name. Name is declared in the Lightning component. While registering, I mentioned the name. So we have to use the same name. So once I get the name, then I have to pass the set params. And then I have to fire the event. So these are the steps for the component event. Okay, what is the application event? Let's go ahead and see. Okay, application event is basically, which is like pops up. Most of the time developer says that pops up. I have used the pops up event. Pops up event is nothing but public subscriber. It's a public subscriber model. So that means application event is a public subscriber model where an event can be handled by any component. It can be handled by any component within this application. When I say any component, that means like in the component event is bubble, right? Bubble. It followed the top to bottom. So bubble corner. Bubble concept is the component event where only the top can be handled. Okay. Siblings cannot handle. Siblings means if I have a multiple components in the parent child cannot be handled. Okay. And if the data cannot be down, which is an inheritance. Inheritance also we cannot pass the data in component event. And if I have any component which is previous to this child component, I cannot pass the data. So only the event that registered happening, wherever the event is firing it, from there only the parent can be handled, which is a direction from the bottom to top. But when it comes to the application event can be handled by any component within the application. If I have two components or more than two components, any component can be handled, irrespective of the hierarchy level. Okay, so what is the irrespective of the hierarchy level? Let's go ahead and seen. Okay, now let me create a new one. So let's assume that this is the application event. This is an application event. And inside this, I have a two components. Inside this, I have a two components. Inside this, I have a two components. Okay, parent component 1 and parent component 2. And inside this parent component 1, let's assume that I have another child component. Okay. And inside this parent component also, I have two child components. And inside this component, I have another child component. And inside this, there is a one button. Okay. So this is the application, and this is the parent component 1, and this is the parent component 2. And inside this, I have a child component. Here I have a child component 1 and child component 2. Okay. Inside this, I have another grandchild. Let's assume that. And there is an event which is happening here. Okay. So if my lightning event is application event, okay, if my event is application event, that means it can be handled on the top. That means from here, if the event is happening, here too, it can go to the grandchild, child 1 and parent 1 application. Okay. This way it works. Also inside inheritance, also it will work inheritance also. For example, let's assume that inside this I have another component. Inside the grandchild, I have another grandchild component. Okay, it can also come to the down. It can also come to the down. So which is a inheritance. And on the application, I have a parent 2 and child 1, child 2. So that means parent 2 also can handle my event. Parent 2 also can handle. As well as if I have a different child, that can also handle. So basically, this is a bubbling. Bubble can handle. Inheritance can handle. And siblings also can handle. So everywhere within the application, any component that can be n first to n number of component, any component can happen with whatever the level down, whatever the level up or siblings, everybody can handle it. It doesn't matter which hierarchy it is falling in. Whether I'm passing it to down or whether I'm passing it to up, it doesn't matter. If I have a lightning event, type is application, I can use it any component. So any component, irrespective of hierarchy. Irrespective of hierarchy. So what is the commands? This is fine if we understand the theoretical part, but how to use the application event? Okay, I'm clear with the component event theoretical part, and we know how to use the component event in terms of the code. But when it comes to the application event, is it same as a component event that I have to use the same logic, same keyword? No, it is not a same logic. Application event has their own style of calling. Okay, so the first one is create an event, which is the same as component event, but only thing, in order to differentiate, we have to use the type equal to application, capital letter. Okay, while creating the event, I have to use the type equal to application. Then I have to register the event. Register the event, it's the same as this. Whatever we have written in the component event, we have to write same aura colon register event, and I have to give some name. Then I have to give type equal to lightning event name. Okay, so this is same. Register is event is same. Coming to fire event. Fire event, how we were doing the component event, what are the action dots, fire, that's it. But coming to application, it's different. We have to use $a dot get. $a dot get. I have to mention two things here. One is E. That means I'm calling the event dot my namespace C dot lightning event name. Or it can be a name that I have given to the lightning event. Component event, firing just simple is fire. But when it comes to the application event, we have to use $a dot get, mention the E dot, this is namespace. By default, it should be C. So we have a different keys in the lightning, right? So when it says V is nothing but field. When it says C is nothing but custom component or function, I'm calling the function. And E nothing but event. So these are the letters that we use in order to call the attribute or component, server-side controller, method, function, whatever it may be, we use the C and then event. Okay. So for the Aura application, for application event, we use $a dot get E dot C. C is the namespace here, but in case if you have a different namespace, use the different namespace. But by default, if we do not have any namespace, then we use the C. Then colon my event name. Okay, and then the next one is handle event. Fire is done. The handle event will be same as this, whatever we used to write for the component event. It's a just straightforward, same as this, aura colon handler event. and the event name, which is a C colon, my component, my Lightning application event, and action to call the function. So this is same. Only the difference that is firing the event. Firing the event is a different, which is $a.get. Okay. And while creating the event, we use the application event. So only the difference is two differences, $a.e.c colon the event name. And while creating the Lightning event, we have to mention type equal to application. We'll see the program tomorrow. Okay. So let me stop the recording.